Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today is Friday, December 6th, and a couple big games this weekend. Penn State, Steelers, going to talk about both of those. It's also a Friday, so we're going to get to your questions. I have a whole bunch. Thank you very much for all of the wonderful questions. We will answer them shortly. First, want to remind you, though, that this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, so I want to start by talking about Penn State and the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. Maybe I'm crazy. Wouldn't be the first time I was called that. Won't be the last. I think Penn State has a chance in this thing. I really do. I was at the Ohio State game. I wrote about this for yesterday's Post-Gazette. If you didn't check that out, please do. But the moment that sort of sticks out in my brain is James Franklin talking in the media room after saying college football has changed. Everything is still in front of us. And I thought it was kind of hokey at the time, but I've been thinking about that more this week as this matchup has sort of crystallized. And stay with me for a second. I mean, Penn State was right with Ohio State. That was a winnable game, which I think is what made it so maddening, right? You can't get 1 yard when you get down there. Tyler Warren takes them all the way to, I think they were at the 1. They were knocking on the door. I remember that. A couple silly penalties. They were unable to stop Ohio State late. I mean, Penn State got beat. It was a frustrating loss, right? But Oregon beat Ohio State by a point. Penn State is not that far off. I think it's been a mental block more than anything, facing Ohio State, Michigan State as many times as they have. This is out of nowhere. It's a fresh setting. It's a new opponent. There's not a ton of history here. Really curious to see how the Nittany Lions come out and perform. Drew Aller's been getting a lot better. Curious to see what he does against that Oregon defense, which is obviously very good. Penn State has a tall task in terms of protecting Aller. The Oregon pass rush is excellent. And Penn State's defense has a lot to contain in Dillon Gabriel. Certainly talked about that earlier in the week. I think that's a gigantic assignment. But I found it interesting. Abdul Carter, the defensive end for Penn State, was named the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Okay, very much deserved. The rest of the defense didn't get a lot of love. I wonder how much that might motivate them going against Oregon if they feel like they have something to prove. Bottom line, it should be a very interesting game. I'm excited for Saturday night. Steelers-Browns. Okay, I think this one's going to be lopsided. I really do. And I don't see how the Steelers can lose twice to the Browns in the same season. If they do, it's going to be ugly. But I don't see it happening. I really don't. I don't think the Browns have it. I don't think they have enough to play for. Anything to play for. Jameis Winston is a turnover waiting to happen. I think the offense is starting to find a little bit of a groove. That game in Cleveland, I mean, it should have been a win. If you have Russell Wilson throwing that 3rd and 4 pass late, I like the Steelers' chances. If Mike Tomlin handles a lot of those in-game decisions better, I like the Steelers' chances. So I'm picking them to win fairly big. I'm going to go 34-13. I'm going to say Russ continues doing what he's doing. He's very good. You know who I think is going to have a blow-up game is TJ Watt. He was way too quiet the last time these two teams met. For whatever reason, we always talk about a lot of TJ Watt and a lot of Myles Garrett. I think that becomes a very integral part of this matchup as well. All right, let's get on to your questions. WVU Outdoors at Worms0i, nice Twitter handle, asks, at this point in the season, what are the biggest needs to be addressed in the NFL draft? It's a good question. We're in the thick of it. I enjoyed the little step outside here as we talk about the NFL draft. I'm going defensive line. That's my number one at this point, and here's why. Keanu Benton's been good. No issue there. It'd probably be a defensive end that I'd look to draft. Cam Hayward's been fantastic. Can't say enough about Cam, and first team all-pro level season at his age. It's been phenomenal. But there's still that at his age qualifier in there. Larry Ogunjobi has one more year at $3.5 million. I'm fine with that. I'm fine writing that out. I'd like to see them address defensive end depth and draft a successor to those guys, knowing Larry O is going to be gone after next year, assuming they ride out the contract in 2025. That would be my biggest need. I'm also thinking about wide receiver. There's so much talk this season about, a wide receiver 2. The Mike Williams trade hasn't really worked out. The Van Jefferson addition hasn't really worked out. I liked some of what I've seen from Calvin Austin III. I'd like it a lot better if they used a a second, third, fourth round pick on a wide receiver and added somebody else into the mix. That's also something the Steelers have done really well. And, aware of what could happen with George Pickens. I don't think they'll let him get away. I don't think they should let him get away, but it's still something you kind of have to think about. And in that same vein, Najee Harris. Did the Steelers have a long-term extension in store with him? Who knows? But if they don't, if he becomes a free agent, if he leaves, they're going to have to draft somebody to pair with Jaylen Warren. And that's another spot that I would look at in the draft. All right, I want to get to a lot more of your questions, but first, a 30-second break from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
And welcome back to First 10. We're here middle of the morning, Monday through Friday. I'm actually in a hotel room in Harrisburg. I'm taking the train into New York City tomorrow for Penguins Rangers. Excited about that. When I first started covering the Penguins in 2014, I think it was Phil Bork. If not, I'll give Borky credit. Told me, take the train. Whenever you can, take a train. So I try to do that. Haven't been on one in a while. I've done this Harrisburg to New York City route before. Really looking forward to it. It's a fun experience. So, all right, Friday on with more of your questions. Tom Oglesby at Tom Ogie, O-G-G-I-E 2 asks, if Pitt volleyball doesn't win at all, is this season a disappointment? Probably. It feels kind of crass or something like that to say that. I mean, I know they're college kids working toward a goal, and maybe typically I wouldn't say that, but they talk pretty openly about that being the goal. That's what they're going for. I mean, I know we can look at it in a larger context and say lessons have been learned, this, that, and the other, and I can put a positive Jiminy Cricket style spin on it. Not really looking at that. Like, this team is good enough, should win it, made it to the Final Four 3 straight years and lost. Like, this is their year. I'm sure they will be looking at it as a disappointment if they don't. Pitt volleyball kicks off the tournament, NCAA tournament on Friday against Morehead State. All right. Mama Holmes asks, at Mama Holmes, what's one realistic piece you would like to add to the Penguins? Honestly, nothing. Continuity is the piece I would like to add to the Penguins. Honestly, I want to see them ride it out. I was asked in a chat earlier today about Marcus Pettersson and a potential trade there. I hope they avoid it. Ricard Raquel's another piece they can maybe look to move at some point, but over the past 4 games, they've played better hockey. They've won. I want to see where this goes. I don't think this means they're instantly going to jolt to the list of contenders in the Eastern Conference, but I want to see them keep it together. If there's any change, I'd like to see them make maybe a little bit more of an infusion of youth, but by and large, I'm kind of okay with the roster composition at this point. All right, what else we have? Andy Iavino, or the Pirates actually going to spend money? Andy, are you new here? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think they're going to spend some money. Do I think the payroll is going to eclipse $100 million? No, I don't. I think it's going to sit around 85, 90. Most of their improvement is going to have to come internally, and that's a thing that I repeat every year with the Pirates, and it gets people mad, and I understand why they want to see them spend. Honestly, I think it's legitimately important for the people they have to get better. Yes, they need to go out and supplement. They need to go add a first baseman, an outfielder, maybe both, a bat. They need to add depth to the bullpen, especially with the Aroldis Chapman. All of that is true. They also need to figure out Henry Davis. They also need to have young pitchers come up and contribute. They also need to get more, the same plus a little bit more from Kyle Nicholas, Carmen Majinski. I don't know if I said Henry Davis, but Henry and Jack in that same question about guys they've had, they need to develop. All right, going to keep going here. Steve Abbott at SWABB1 with Chapman gone, and who knows what with Bednar in 2025. The Pirates have anybody in-house to take over as closer if needed. Well, they've got a couple guys they could turn to. Nicholas is one. At times, he's had just absolutely nasty stuff. He's never done it, but it's closer-level stuff. The same thing with Holderman. I guess the same thing with Majinski. Honestly, if it doesn't work out with Bednar, I think their next move would be closer by committee. It's something that Shelton brought here and has kind of gotten away from, trying to go more matchup, leverage, that sort of thing. No, they need to go out and get a lefty. Everybody I mentioned is right-handed, so that's part of it. But if Bednar falters, and believe me, The idea is for David Bednar to figure it out. I think he can figure it out. I think that's a big part of why they brought Brent Strom here. That's not an easy thing to say. He's actually meeting with Bednar today, as well as some other people. But yeah, I mean, they need to figure out Bednar. Hopefully they don't get to a contingency plan. They do have some guys. Hopefully add one or two more, but I think they'd probably go more depth. All right, if the Pirates move Bryan Reynolds to first base, are they just being cheap so that they don't have to spend money on a free agent? Does this mean that they will platoon outfielders and play matchups? When can we get a lineup that doesn't change every game? SCO at SKO0024 asked that one. Probably speaking for a lot of the fan base. It's a comment that I get a lot. So, all right, let's go through this piece by piece. No, it doesn't necessarily mean they're being cheap. There could be a logical reason for moving Bryan Reynolds to first base if they do that. What if they sign Tyler O'Neill? Seriously, it's been posited 3 years, $42 million. If they did that, they wouldn't be being cheap. I don't think they're going to sign Tyler O'Neill, but I'm just saying if they sign that type of outfielder, that could make sense. Also with Reynolds at first base, it's not my understanding that that's going to be a full-time job for him. If he went over there, it would be more in a part-time capacity, which tells me it's probably not going to affect their free agent spending, offseason planning, something like that. It might just be to try to get more bats in the lineup, get guys at bats, balance, that sort of thing. It doesn't take away from the fact that they need to improve their offense, regardless of where Bryan Reynolds plays. Do I think he can do it? Probably. I think there's enough athleticism, smarts, baseball experience. Like, give him enough practice, he would be serviceable over there. But it doesn't fix anything. You know, you need to add a bat behind Bryan Reynolds. They got rid of Brian De La Cruz. It was not a good addition to begin with, but that still means they need to figure out Jack Sawinski or somebody else and fill that spot with some offense. So I think that, when can we get a lineup that doesn't change every game? Not to be a smart aleck, but when you get one that clicks. The Pirates went through stretches last season where they were actually producing runs. You know what happened then? They didn't change the lineup. They've gone through too many stretches where they didn't produce runs, so they changed the lineup. Yes, Shelton plays matchups and puts people in goofy spots, and I don't always agree with it. You don't always agree with it. Connor Joe hitting cleanup, I think is what I'm referencing. But what I'm saying is that if you put guys in spots and they're productive and the lineup is clicking, they're not going to screw with it. So that's when you will see that. I don't think you're going to see a lineup languishing and then just sticking it out. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for the questions. Really, really appreciate it. We'll be back here next week to wrap up a little Steelers-Browns, a little Penn State-Oregon. So make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this content and so much more here on the Post-Gazette, North Shore Drive, YouTube, and Podcast Network. Thanks for watching First 10, everybody.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.